Story 1. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not all-powerful. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then from where comes evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? Epicurus. Story 2. It's the followers you have to be wary of. No issues with God or the gods or goddesses. Personal beliefs. We're all climbing the same mountain. We each have to find our own path. There is simply a universal energy. Names are for intentions and purely exist for human satisfaction. It's all the same in the end. The energy is genderless, nameless, and numberless. Those are human limitations. Spells and prayers are the same basic thing. By and large, religious texts have been written to control man by man. The Bible has been translated, edited, cut, and mended so many times that the original material is lost to time. If ever it was credible in any capacity, it no longer is. Such is the nature of religious texts. The Bible is not the only religious text and is no more or less valid than other texts it borrowed from. Fighting over God is the most senseless and ridiculous driver of humankind's violence. It's also the most prevalent. Story 3. I do not think he exists, but if he does, the way the world he created works does not reflect positively on him. And if he is exactly how he is depicted in the Old Testament, he is downright awful. Story 4. Either doesn't exist or doesn't care about me. My entire family is Christian and doesn't understand how I don't hear anything from him. I don't understand how almost 80% of the world thinks there's something out there when I can't. It makes me feel lonely sometimes. Story 5. He created the universe and Earth, and there it was. Now, millions of people are dying from disease, starvation, and war across the globe. Explain his purpose. Was it so he could send down Jesus so the wealthy could be blessed with their access to higher education, luxury cars, and expensive houses and belongings? Or so prosperity preachers can start tax-free cults? Or maybe so Christians could have the power of the government behind them that allows them to discriminate against those that aren't? Or to make people fear him so that they behave and be decent people? I've never heard a compelling reason for his existence that cannot be refuted by pointing out the obvious questionable motives, behavior, and actions by those that so vehemently claim allegiance to him. Honestly, I'm certain I can be a decent, caring, loving person without giving a millisecond worth of thought as to whether or not a God exists. And I find it impossible to believe in a gated community in the sky. Story 6. I do not understand why he eradicated an entire planet full of dinosaurs and replaced them with hairless talking apes with emotional problems. I would have kept the dinosaurs. Story 7. Edith. He's everywhere. We just can't see him. Harry. If this was the best I could do, I'd be hiding too. A legendary line from A Man from Earth. Story 8. It's just something humans created when they lack the capacity to understand or comprehend the events happening around them, like the day and night cycle, the stars in the sky, the moon, rain, or even the seasons and even death. Story 9. If he exists, we should be building a giant tower to kill him. He seems a bit like an asshole, given you know the Holocaust and childhood cancer, and my micropenis. Story 10. Absolute nonsense. How can anyone argue that there is a God with all the atrocities going on in the world? And before anyone says, that's all down to us and only us, why doesn't he use his power to stop it? Why is he willing to watch innocent children die from horrible diseases while he stands by and does nothing? He apparently had the power to allow his only son to rise from the grave, so surely killing a few cancer cells and eradicating a few rapists and child murderers wouldn't be too much of a problem for him. Religion was created to control people, make people do what they were told, and abide by certain rules. I'm not sure about you, but I personally know not to steal or kill, and I don't need a fictitious almighty being to tell me. Story 11. I don't know. I was born Christian. I lived a good and healthy life. I then left Christianity for a number of years and entered a world of depression, anxiety, and addiction. Recently, I returned to Christianity, and for the first time in years, anxiety and depression are nothing but a distant memory, and my road to recovery from addiction is getting better by the day. In my opinion, God is good. He has saved me personally. I feel more at peace with myself and extend that peace to others when I can. It's unfortunate what mankind has done in his name: crusades, slavery, residential schools, and pretty much anything the Catholic Church has had involvement in. It's a shame. God is good, and I've only noticed positive change when he enters our lives. Story 12. God does not exist. It is a way to funnel tax-free money to people who are some of the best swindlers in the world. All you have to do is look at the Catholic and Mormon Church, then the less obvious ones but the most blatant like Scientology. I am convinced religion is for the naive and the old and senile. Story 13. Relying on faith is kinda stupid. Just appear in the sky like a Terry Gilliam cartoon and let everyone see you, and you'll get a whole lot more enthusiasm from me. Story 14. I'm assuming you're referring to the Judeo-Christian God? It doesn't exist, and if it did exist, then it certainly is not the good one. As portrayed in the Bible, God is a narcissistic psychopath who doesn't seem to have many qualms about committing genocide, among other things. Story 15. I'm open to the idea, but I have a hard time with the concept of an all-powerful being that loves us so much that abuse is the only way that love can be expressed. Story 16. If there is a sentient entity out there that has omnipotence and yet engineered such a large universe with such a minuscule speed limitation, they do not deserve any sort of worship. Story 17. I am not sure if God exists, but praying makes me feel better. I figure worst case scenario I am just talking to myself, and that does not hurt anyone. I am also Jewish, and I enjoy the religious rituals as a way to connect to my roots and community. Story 18. If a God exists, then suffering will not exist because a true God is a perfect God. A God will not allow his own creation to suffer. If a God exists, then he is failing big time. What a loser. Story 19. People not on Reddit. Well, that's a complex question relating to thousands of years of existential, scientific, and philosophical inquiry and metaphysical issues surrounding ideas of human value, meaning, and morality. Many, if not most, of mankind's metaphysical and existential struggles for thousands of years have related to this very question, and some of history's most brilliant and thoughtful people have taken many different positions on this question. People on Reddit. Laugh out loud. Invisible Sky Daddy. Story 20. I kind of feel for him. I mean, imagine having billions of people wanting all kinds of things from you, as well as telling you what you should do to whom and why. He must never get a minute of peace. Story 21. I think there is a God, but I do not trust any person, institution, or document claiming to know God's will or to act in their name. No major religious literature exists in the state it was originally written, so if any of them did represent a divine guidance, they have been translated and manipulated enough times to be totally unreliable. I certainly don't know better than anybody else what God wants. By my own metric, my own beliefs surely just validate the ideas I find comforting and right. I think dogmatized religion has a tendency to personify God into our image to serve that purpose. I like to be kind and forgiving, so I think God desires kindness and forgiveness. It's self-serving in its own way, so I consider one's relationship to God to be a deeply personal and private affair. None of my business to judge or question others unless they cause harm. But sometimes I'll just look around at all the buildings and natural wonders, or think of the love I have for people living and dead. The sheer scientific complexity of reality somehow producing me and everything I know, good and bad. And it just gives this feeling that there's a reason we're alive that I am unable or unwilling to reason my way out of. All I can hope is that there are answers at the end, but I'll be okay if there's not. I just hope they understand that most people are trying their best. I think the only thing I genuinely fear would be that organized religions were right, that you have to look at God one way and one way alone, and figure out that way is the correct way when compared to all the others with no guidance, and that there is punishment or unfulfillment in failing to do so. A God who relies on threats and immunities, a transactional God. I would rather there be no God and no afterlife at all than that, because such a God, by my metric, is an evil one. Story 22. I think that if he exists, he is either unable to interact with the universe further after creating it, not all powerful, or not all good, because if he is all these things, then why does suffering still exist? Story 23. I don't know if it exists or not. All I know for certain is that all religions are invented by humans, and people who still worship these words are idiots and a possible danger to society. Story 24. Imagine playing the newest city or civilization builder, and some computer-generated person you didn't even notice or distinguish in the crowd on the screen holds a grudge against you for his unfortunate life. That's roughly how I envision this whole situation. He has the power to create the world, but it doesn't mean he will indulge every single one of these individuals individually. Story 25. Legit, I thought this was a world-building discussion. Which one? The capital G one. Okay, which one? That doesn't narrow it down. Mean it. Ha, stereotypical Christian God. No, the Catholic one. A made-up character that people use to explain the world. No different than believing the stars revolve around the earth. With everything we knew to be true, but then we had the means to look closer. We have the means to prove everything of this to be untrue. Well, it helps guide my morals. No, it doesn't. You pick and choose what you want to follow. An answer looking for a question. Story 26. A fictional character in a series of fictional texts that may have helped once upon a time, but we really have no need for now. Religious texts had a use when the world was far too big and there was no way of securing people's well-being. Afraid of getting murdered? Don't worry. God will smite those who try. Is your child sick? Pray while you dunk your kid in olive oil and they may be saved. Even though we have evolved past the need for any of this nonsense, religion has endured. While its power is wavering, it's still a powerful tool used by those with ill intent. Just look at the United States. Christian fascism is on the rise by a small but very vocal number of people. I don't see any good in religion myself, but for those that do, good. Just keep it to yourself and maybe don't shove it upon others. Story 27. The most popular method of establishing a moral code via storytelling is completely ruined by a small group of humans bending it to their benefit. Story 28. Too many people use God to vote for evil and to be cruel to other people. I wish the concept of a God was never invented or believed by humanity. It has set us further backwards and killed more of us than pretty much anything else, and continues to kill us. Story 29. Which one? We have millions of them. Okay, since you seem to be a Westerner, you maybe mean that Christian one. Well, like any other god, he's man-made. A figure from a fantasy book. Like Conan the Barbarian. Story 30. Given that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, any god that may exist would most likely just be a very advanced civilization. In my mind, if God truly exists, I don't think any monotheistic religion has gotten it right. I don't believe God can really care about what happens on Earth, be all good, all-knowing, and all-powerful at the same time. The world is way too flawed for that. Story 31. He shows up when Aunt Linda's bundt cake comes out pristine, but not when a classroom full of elementary-aged children die bleeding, scared, and alone from some nut job. Seems pretty lazy to me. Story 32. I used to be religious. Went to seminary and everything. It was a real cornerstone of my life. Being without that perceived reassurance blows. Sometimes I worry that I made the wrong decision, but then I think, if God exists, they are omnipotent, or at the very least they know what I am capable of feeling. If that is so, surely they understand me enough to have mercy on me. Story 33. I'm an atheist who appreciates religion. It's just too irrational for a data-driven brain like mine. I like the comfort it gives my wife in the face of death. I like the pageantry of them and the focus on family most of them have. I am glad Christianity has moved out of the Dark Ages for the most part, and I hope Islam can do the same. I do hate the tribalism it engenders, but if they weren't religious tribes, we'd just replace them with other tribes, I guess. Story 34. There is a mystery. The biggest mystery of mankind. Why are we here? What is the purpose of it all? The mystery has many unanswered questions. Religion is the cloth we throw over the mystery to give it a shape. Personally, I do not like using somebody else's cloth. It feels like I am taking someone's interpretation of the mystery, and I ended up coming up with my own. God is existence. It is what we call the origin. It is not an actual sentient entity or being that has morals or an agenda. It is not something you can have a conversation with before you are born and after you die. Sometimes I feel I only have pieces of my cloth I could knit together, but I feel true to my own thoughts when I do it. It is a shame. I see the good that having faith does for people and how it fortifies them. I wish I had the same, but I just do not. Story 35. As long as when I am on my deathbed I feel I put more good into the world instead of making it worse, then I do not really care. It is more important to me that I know I am a good person, or at least always working to be better, compared to acting in a way that I believe a God would want me to act. No judgment for those who do believe, just as long as they do not use their religion in a way that harms others. Story 36. I feel like if there is one, he made everything and just stepped back or moved on. I don't know if he is an active participant in anyone's lives and really doubt it. Story 37. If a God does exist, no one alive knows what it wants or even anything at all. All the biblical stories we have were spread by word of mouth for thousands of years, then put on paper and rewritten so many times that I doubt there are many true facts left. Story 38. Adult Santa Claus. Tell people you believe in a magical man in the sky at age 20, and nobody bats an eye. Tell people you believe in Santa Claus at age 20, and everyone loses their minds. If you're born in India, you will probably end up Hindu or Sikh. In the Middle East, Islam. In the West, Christian. Being born somewhere has a bigger impact on which version of Santa Claus you believe in than actually considering all the religions and which one seems right. If that were the case, everyone would believe in science because it has data to back it up, unlike religions. We know a lot more about the nature of religion than we did a century ago, which is why atheism and agnosticism have gone way up. Have your religious existential crisis when you're 13, get over it, and move on with science as an adult. Come on, Morty.